All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with episode 23 of Zed Daily. I have Jack from Sunny Days Stable with us today. How you doing, sir?
I am good. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. So I wanted to start it off by asking you, how did you find Zed Run?
Yeah, similar story to a couple others you've had on the show. I think the whole NBA Top Shot craze was kind of my main foray into NFTs. Into crypto for a bit, but kind of got into that back in the beginning of this year. And I think the first time I bought a horse was one of the drops in March or April, and just kind of wasn't sure, didn't know a whole lot about it. Um, the whole ecosystem was so different back then. And I think I got a couple Genesises just by myself, like a Z5 and a Buterin. And I just flipped the Z5, just thought, this is a good flip. And I don't know too much about this. And then kind of played it out with the other Genesis I got, bred some horses, got the hang of it, got interested in it, and I think actually ended up selling off sort of most of what I had before the following drop, and started talking with a few buddies that I've known my whole life that are not really or have not really been into NFTs at all, but I think they heard about Zed and it just kind of clicked for them. I think they were buying the top shots, but not really too kind of interested in it. They owned a little bit of crypto, but nothing crazy. And we just said, let's kind of go in on this, and let's try to get a real stable pulled together. So me and two friends, we own the stable, kind of a third, a third, a third. A couple other guys have a little bit of money in it passively, but we I guess it was the May drop. It was the last big drop that kind of went well. uh, we each just tried to buy as much as we could. And so we ended up each getting a Z1. Um, we got a few Finnies out of there. We got a few Buterins. And that was kind of how Sunny Days in its current construction got set up. And it's funny because back then, um, breeding was not working. This was after the Roid Rager thing in April, and breeding was not on, and therefore I think racing was pretty tough. And so we didn't do a whole lot really for a month or two there. Just kind of sat and waited and thought, might as well wait for breeding to get going before we race anything, because and the monsters of the racetracks back then were different than they are now. But just seemed like the racing was pretty sharp, and might as well just wait it out. And kind of really started engaging, in probably early July, back when breeding turned on. And I think we've got probably a dozen Genesises. Have never sold any, but just been doing a bunch of breeding, a bunch of racing. Been liking these tournaments a lot. Obviously, got our beak wet in a good way with that Netflix
Yeah.
race. And yeah, it's been interesting. I think right when breeding turned back on, I think if you had been in Zed for a bit, you kind of knew, all right, you could flip stuff easily here. You could breed together something and it could pull 40 odds in the Griffin and you could still sell for 3x or whatever. So we were definitely doing some of that, but we were holding on to some breeds too. And I think a few months passed and that environment's over. I think you can still make money doing that, but it's a lot harder. You're flipping sneakers to an extent. Um, and so we've had to evolve a bit. I think we got lucky with a few of our Genesis just being great racers that we're still racing, daily. Probably three of them are pretty solid, have shown to be profitable. And the rest were breeding and kind of hanging on to, and just sort of evolving as the ecosystem changes and the meta, so to speak, continues to change.
That's awesome. And it's cool to see how much has changed in that time. But going back to your start a little bit, what made like the difference in your mind? Like what made you change your mind from a flippers aspect to these horses to then going for a Z1 and like going for the highest highs of a horse you can on the drop? What, like, was it that you hopped in races and you saw how fun the game was, so you thought, hey, maybe I want to go for a higher bloodline, get a racehorse? How'd you go from flipper to racing?
Yeah, I think, and I had been involved in other NFTs, and Zed was just on a different level in terms of utility, which I know is a little cliche to say, but utility and engagement. Um, I haven't found anything else. I know there's other games, trying to come out now, but where you can go on and play and you're not just refreshing a marketplace or a price screen. And so, like I said, I had played a little bit myself. I thought it was awesome. It was a really liquid environment and ecosystem where it was pretty easy to make money, and I got a lot of conviction in kind of the platform long term. And my couple buddies shared the same conviction, and so we just sort of thought, let's kind of take a gamble here, and if we're going to get in, let's go big. Even if we don't get good racers, or Zed doesn't really grow, Z1s aren't a bad investment. There's a cap supply. There always ought to be demand for them in some way or another, and so that was the goal of that drop. We were each able to get one, I think, because probably people were a little surprised at the price point in that drop.
How much were they?
I think they were about 10 ETH.
Ooh.
Um,
Ooh.
so Zed in that drop, it looked like it kind of priced at least the Nakamoto's sort of to market, and kind of left the flipping margin in for Buterins and stuff. And so wanted to get him cheaper, but I think the plan was to just play the game, and we weren't going to flip. We were just going to try to see this through, and we didn't have it all laid out on a spreadsheet in terms of what we would do. We're going to sort of play it by ear and try to succeed.
So when you have these Z1s in the top of the NFT market in August, did it ever come across your mind to sell these Z1s for, like, what were they going for, 20 ETH? Did you ever consider that?
Yeah, so we have three. One Morticia is one, which we haven't really considered seriously trying to sell, and we're not back in August ever considering it. The second one is a mare, which we think is really important to have for what we're trying to do, and so never listed that. We have a third one that's a pretty solid base ability kind of racer. I don't race him much just because he's got like a 20% win rate right now, and I don't know how much damage he's going to do in C1 anymore, but we were considering selling him at one point, but weren't trying too hard. Listed him a bit above kind of that high floor that you're mentioning. Didn't really get any nibbles, but we were cool with that. We really did try to, we approached this with a long-term perspective, and we weren't trying to flip. And we want to own Z1s. We believe in the game. I think around that time, the Chernin Group invested in Zed, which was important to us, as just sort of a vindication of the idea and the team and the platform. And so these floors and the markets are going to go up and down. This isn't the first time the market's been down. That wasn't the first time the market pumped. I don't think it's going to be the first or the last. And so, we're really looking at this kind of multi-year. We're still making money. We haven't sold a Genesis yet. Didn't during the pump, not really looking to. We're selling other stuff, and we have been selling other stuff, but so no, we thought about selling one of the Z1s, but didn't try too hard.
Okay. So in a day-to-day aspect, who plays what role within Sunny Days? Like out of the three guys, who does what on a daily basis in the stable?
Yeah, I'm pretty much running point. I'm running point on the racing at this point, which we keep pretty lean compared to some of the other guys you probably talk to. And then the breeding we do together, and any kind of big decision, which isn't strictly defined, we're talking about and consulting each other, and we're talking every day, the three of us. I'm the one pushing most of the buttons, but anything kind of meaningful in terms of money or impact, we're talking about together. And we do look at a breeding plan every month together and kind of talk about it and sign off on it.
So what is your guys' breeding plan? And do you guys have a blood tool to support that breeding plan? How do you guys go about this?
Yeah, I haven't dabbled in the blood tools too much yet. I've seen a couple come out. I've seen people talking about having success with them. I think that's a big part of the game that Zed and the community, I think, needs to make a bit more robust, especially now when you can't just jam two horses together and expect to kind of free roll. But no, we're not using a tool, and I candidly have not examined them in much detail yet, though I expect more and more to come out, and I expect them to be pretty good because I've heard that they're pretty good. I'd say currently we're not breeding everything. We put our best studs into the stud farm and try to get third-party covers, just because that's a pretty solid amount of ETH. For a couple in particular, people are willing to pay or have been willing to pay, and it helps us bank some money or put money towards other things we're trying to do in terms of breeding. We breed our Nakamotos together every month, and we have one Zabo, legendary female, who we bought for breeding, and she's turned out very good. She's had kind of 2 winners out of 3 so far, both of which we've sold, but that's been nice. We breed her every month, and then the rest, I think, is just kind of mashing a few Genesises together that we own and putting others in the stud farm and trying to make some money off that. You know, we don't breed any exclusives or below besides Nakamotos and Zabos. Just kind of stopped in the last few months. For what we're trying to do, not a great use of time, I don't think, at least not right now. And we go in with a plan. We know what it's going to cost us to breed what we're going to breed that month. And we kind of play it by ear in terms of racing or holding or flipping unraced, right? Just sort of depends how the month is going, the market's going. And so there's no set plan. We really just kind of play it by ear, and not afraid to cut bait if it's not a good racer. I mean, we try to keep the racing pretty lean. We just have 3 C1 racers right now, and that's kind of enough. We've had good ones and have just chosen to sell them to, I think, people that can make more money with them and get more volume down with them than I would or than we would. So we're, I think, under 20 horses still, overall.
So with these 3 horses, are these horses racing 7 days a week?
Yeah.
And how do you go about that? Do you wake up at a certain time in the morning, pick certain distances for each horse, like one Morticia only sprints, and your other 2s pick their distances, and then you go your 9 races, come back in 12 hours? How do you go about racing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. It's not quite that official or regimented, but yeah, we obviously know Tish is a sprinter. Have another Genesis called Imaginator, who's a pretty good kind of 2000 plus horse. And then the other one is a Z1 female called We Are All of the Stars, who's nothing amazing. She actually came in 3rd in the Pity Cup tournament a few days ago. Lost to terms of engagement. She's profitable though at mid. So yeah, I'm not waking up every day and getting 30 races in and then setting an alarm and getting 10 more. I also have a young kid, so sometimes I'm up really early. Other times when she's sleeping, I'm trying to sleep. So it's not the most optimized or systematic approach, but yeah, we've got distances, we've got buy-in ranges that we're comfortable with for each one. And yeah, trying to get, usually morning, day or night, depending on what's going on.
Now with these Z1s, do you study the fields of who you're going against, or do you just say, I know my horse, I know I have a good shot at winning, I don't care who's in the race?
I would say at the start, especially with One More Tisha, we were pretty careful. We knew he was good and we knew he was getting great odds, but trying to get stud covers was always part of the strategy with him. And so I think we would race a lot of 250s and frees. And I was careful with who we entered him against because we were trying to have good stats. And same with this other horse called Imaginator, who's a Z6, who's, does pretty well in class one these days. We charge above, well above minimum for them in the stud farm and have been getting it. And so I think we have traditionally been pretty careful with them. I think since the tournaments and the Netflix race, Tisha has gotten, publicity. It sounds kind of strange to say, but a little bit less worried about, preserving every great statistic with him now. But if I see an easy 250, I'm still going to enter that because I can't sit at the computer all day waiting for the perfect $5 or whatever. And I think he's pretty solid at a couple of his distances. So with the males, it's still a consideration. I mean, I'm not going to throw in Imaginator into a $50 with Artois and Rendezvous Peak and Moolah Moolah. There's just no point of that. Even with no rake, we'll do it every, on a Saturday night, once in a while, something like that, take a gamble, which the Netflix race was. But the reason I say it's changed a little bit because so much more money has come into racing recently, which I don't think people have fully processed yet. But 3 months ago, you couldn't make, relative to what Tish or Imaginaire could make in the stud farm, you couldn't make racing realistically unless you were going to really, really grind and kind of make it really do it optimally and kind of have things roll your way. I think that's a little bit different now, which is interesting. And I don't think people are fully appreciating yet.
I 100% agree because we got no rake now. They brought back the 250s in C1. We got guys like Wagme coming in and buying up all these superstar racehorses. Like, a lot more money is coming into the racing system. But you did touch on something I wanted to talk about, which was the Netflix race. Now, on the day of the Netflix race, 99% of, I'll say 100% of the Zed community had no clue what was going on. Like, nobody knew the exact time, what was going to happen. So, one, how'd you hop in that race? Two, how'd you get 3 guys to sign off? And 3, why'd you pick One More Tisha?
Yeah, I mean, I go on Zed every day, so I knew what was going on. And I had seen like that press release and just kind of thought, and I hate to say it, but I was like, who knows if this will happen? Like, I don't know what this is. I'm not going to think much about this. And then I saw some of the guys, various constituents in the Discord that weekend, like Friday, Saturday, kind of saying what's going on here. And nobody was saying anything. I think it was a Sunday afternoon, late afternoon East Coast time, and I was just racing like normal. And it popped up. And it took me a second to see like 3,000 buy-in, whatever, 73,000 prize pool. And I sort of screenshotted it to my 2 buddies. And I was like, I think this is a staked race. I didn't even really know if it was the Netflix thing or not. but I thought that it was that. And one guy was not responding. And then the other guy was like, let's do it. And I saw I was filling fast. I saw a milk bar go in there. And I didn't recognize a lot of the others. Again, I don't know as many of these guys, and I didn't know who Sentinel was at the time. I don't think a lot of people did yet. But he was in, and I just thought Tish is great at 10 and 12 and 14. And this is like I'll use the term overlay, which is like a DFS term. Like there's so much EV in here, even if you've got 15 odds in the race. So let's just do it, and did it. And I got the last spot, I think, and then saw that we didn't flame, which was kind of crazy, and watched it, and it was crazy. It took me a couple of days to kind of fully recover from the whole experience in a good way.
So tell me about the thrill of that race compared to any other race you've had in Zed. Like, what made that one different, and how did that one feel?
Obviously, the money. That's a big chunk of change for anybody, including for us. And that part was sweet. I think I think people probably realize this by now, but it was like a 7-minute experience start to finish. Like it was just like a normal paid race. And you were in it, right? You were in the first one too?
Got 12.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was crazy. And I think I said this on one of the other streams, but I was just staring, saw him braking, and was just kind of like, oh my God, I think he's about to win. Did not see anybody come close to coming in second, which I realize in retrospect did happen. And the second the race finished, my buddy who had been responding, I think was like going through the airport and was like, did that just happen? And I said, yes. He's like, did you get the money yet? I said, no. That took about 15 minutes. But it was crazy. And it was, as you know, the community, wasn't, people were angry about it, of course. And I get that. And so, that felt a little strange to have sort of the best night of our Zed life when, all these other people were angry. But it was crazy and got a lot of support, a lot of people reaching out saying, congrats, man, I'm happy for you. So that was cool.
Who's the first person outside of Zed that you told, and what was their reaction?
So I was at my in-laws because it was like a week before Thanksgiving, and I kind of ran upstairs. I was watching it on a computer downstairs, ran upstairs as my friend called me, and then came back downstairs. And I think I had to tell my wife and my father-in-law at the same time. That was my father-in-law's introduction to Zed. Wasn't really planning on telling him about Zed ever, but I did. And so it was him and my wife who I told. And my wife was pumped. She knows what Zed is and stuff. And my father-in-law needed some explaining, but he thought it was cool too. So
That's cool, man. That's cool. It's just so crazy to think about, right? Like, you just hop in a $3,000 race, and then 15 minutes later, you got what, $44,000 in your wallet?
it was crazy. I mean, it's the dream of why at least I joined Zed is like, breeding's awesome. Like the grind is great. I love racing. I love, picking a race, even if it's $2. I think it's fun. I think it's cool. And I think it's thrilling, but yeah, being able to make that kind of money, man, it's the dream. It was our dream of why we came in, like to have a racehorse that could make that kind of money in one game, one race, right? Was awesome. So yeah, and then there was another one a couple weeks later. So that's what I mean. I think we'll see what happens. Nobody knows like if there's a roadmap for these sorts of things, but this is something that people thought and wanted Zed to do, that they did deliver on. They might not have executed it perfectly the first time. I think they did all right the second time. And the fact that a few horses can make that kind of money, gosh, if that happens once every few, once a month or whatever, and you get smaller stakes version of that or different versions of that. I don't see many other things out there right now that can compete with that.
Not even close to. It can't compete in profits that you could get, the entertainment value that you get, the community aspect around it, like the advertisements that you could place around that. There's really nothing else in this whole space that could even touch that, right?
No, no. I mean, and like I have the other NFTs. I still like Top Shot and all that, but there's nothing to do with that. You can buy and sell and check it out, but Zed is awesome. I know there's other games that people are playing or people are excited about, and that's cool. I'm not saying I won't, check those out or anything, but Zed has delivered on a lot of stuff. I mean, 2 months ago, tournaments weren't a thing. These staked races weren't a thing, and it's a shame that they didn't execute the first one great. But I think I'm happy with where we are, which is owning a couple horses that can win in Class 1 in those sorts of races, because that was a lot of money for something like that. And if that happens with any kind of regularity, I think it helps the whole platform.
And it justifies spending 10 ETH on that horse at the drop, right? I mean, you put in that initial investment and you made that back in one race, right? I mean, we're broke even now. There's no point in even entertaining offers on this horse, because you can just make passive income day to day, and then you have a shot, or at least now that you can win these big races. So why ever sell a horse like that, right?
Exactly. Especially at today's prices. But
Yeah, right.
yeah, exactly. I think it changed the game in a way people don't quite understand. And I totally get that 99% of the people out there, don't own a Nakamoto and all this. And I understand that completely. I think those people should still recognize, like, this is good for everybody. For a horse to win that much on a single day in a single race, with the prize pool doubled by Netflix or Zed or whatever, is massive. And it will trickle down. I know Zed is planning on doing tournaments and all this for smaller stables or Z20 pluses, that kind of stuff, which is great. I think people got to hang tight. But that was a huge step. It was a little bit overlooked because of the execution, which is a shame. But I, as I said a minute ago, I don't think people have fully processed sort of what this could mean for the market and for the game.
And if this is the first one, I mean, I think the prize pools and the money that you're going to be able to win will be even more in the future, right?
Yep, exactly. So excited about what happens, and the tournaments too. I mean, the tournaments were a dream 2 months ago, and yeah, there's Z1s winning the first few here, which is what it is. As I think Keith from Crimson said on your guys' stream a couple days ago, like, it needs to work that way. Z1s have to have value for everything else to have value. If Z1s don't have value, then or some Z1s don't have value, then the whole thing doesn't work. So bright future. And I'm just kind of keeping my head down, playing these tournaments, breeding a little bit, racing, and Zed is not, a flip anymore. It's not a flip like the way other stuff is. It's a different kind of thing. I think the easy money has been made to an extent, but I think you can get into this game now and buy some racers, make an investment. And if you're patient, I think they're showing you what this could be.
So Redwood City Classic 2.0 rolls around. Did you ever consider it hopping into another one on the second Netflix race?
I did. So saw that come out, and Tisha was in the stud farm. And
Mm.
and we put him in for 7 days at a time just because that's where you get the highest take. And we had him in at 1.1 ETH. He had gotten one cover, so 2 left. I think I tweeted out, can 2 people take the last 2 so I can enter this race tomorrow? No takers. So Tish and didn't make sense to take that ourselves. We didn't even know what distance it was. Didn't know exactly what the format was going to be. So weren't about to take Tish's 2 covers at that price for a shot at entering this race. So I knew if it was a sprint, we weren't going to do it. We had my horse Imaginator. He was in the stud too. He only had 1 left at 0.15. And so we took that ourselves, recognizing, you're punting off a little bit doing that. And if it was 2022, 24, 26, we would have put him in again, just because I think a lot of the people that enter these races realize that, the bigger stables like Zed doubling the prize pool, I don't know what the exact math is, but if you've got 16 odds in that race, or if you're a decent shot to podium, you need to enter that race all day long. I think that's how you're looking at it, at least. And it's just free money. You might not win, but if you've got a decent horse and you enter that 10 times, you're going to make money. Obviously, we got lucky that Tisha shipped the first one. So yeah, I knew if it was a sprint, we were just going to sit on the sidelines, and of course that's what happened. So, and you came in third in the second one, right?
Correct.
That's sweet.
Nerve-wracking, dude. When I saw you on the Pony Plug and you said I didn't see Rest in Peace come from behind, I'm like, and I'm sitting there as like a spectator, I'm like, okay, I don't know how he didn't see this horse. I'm like, this horse was cooking. But when you have your own horse in that race, everybody else is invisible. You're only looking, especially when you're kicking too. It's like, all right, I know I got to kick. I don't see anybody else here. Just eye on the prize, finish line, finish line, finish line.
It was crazy. I could not have told you. I think I was looking at Tisha and Milk Bar a little bit, just because obviously Milk Bar is an awesome horse. They run him against Tisha a lot. I knew he was probably a favorite. And obviously she got the flames. So I was keeping an eye on her, and then I think she broke early, and I thought, oh, they may not, this might not be the race for Milk Bar. And then couldn't have told you second or third until I watched it replay. It was crazy.
It's so nuts, man. It's so nuts, because just a race like that just makes you realize why this game is going to blow up, because we don't have those every day, right? But when we start having those maybe every Friday, every Saturday, or every month, it's just consistent. People are going to be printing money.
Yep. Yeah, I think, and I've heard some guys on your stream say this, and I've heard it on others, but I think this could turn into, and I don't know what they have planned, but this could turn into like a daily fantasy sort of lobby where you've got big buy-in tournaments running every week. You've got different formats at a different variety of buy-ins. Maybe you've got winner take all. You've got 50-50 where 1st through 6 double their money, 7 through 12 lose. There's so much potential. I do maybe predict that the current kind of cash game lobby of just the $2.50, $5, 10, 25s and a little bit higher than that sometimes, I could see the format changing next year, where more of the money or more of the action is in either these tournaments or these staked races or different formats. And I think those cash games will always exist because they're great, but I don't think we're looking at the finished product right now.
So is that what you think they mean when they say every horse is going to be viable in this system? Some horses will be the grinders to where they can just day to day do the $25, $50 buy-ins, $100 buy-ins, to where some horses, they're only going to be able to do these maybe 7 through 12 tournaments or 1st through 3rd tournaments. Is that what you think they mean by that?
That is what I think. And that's the tough part these last couple months, is if you don't have an amazing horse, there's not a whole lot to do, and you can't make as much money breeding anymore. So I think a lot of people are kind of stuck. And the other thing is, which I know people appreciate, is racing is getting harder every day because more bred horses are coming out. You've got Artois showing up, things like that. And horses that can't win anymore are being benched. And I thought like this pity point, the pity cup was a great glimpse of something they can do, because I know personally I had 3 or 4 horses that I hadn't raced in months that I was out there competing with. A couple of which qualified. They didn't do anything, but they qualified. And I saw that from other people in the community too. There's an endless number of ways they could do stuff like that. I love that the qualifying is free as well, because I have friends who, don't have a huge stack of cash in the game, but like it. They love to try to qualify, even if it's the Fibonacci Cup and they're running a donkey in Class 1. They think it's sweet. So I think that's what you're going to see in both tournaments and the normal lobby is, and there's a million ways to do it. Z20 or above, elite or below, right? Negative profit lifetime races, that a million ways to do it. But I think that is what they are hinting at, to give utility and a way to make money to horses that have been benched for the last 6 months. I mean, think about if you had a horse that could never win, that you hadn't raced since August. If you qualified it for the pity point, A or B, you had a chance to win a couple $100 if you placed in the first race. That came out of nowhere. You're not paying anything for that. So absolutely. I think it's not perfect right now, obviously. And I saw the, people saying, oh my God, a Z1 won both of those pity points, WTF. And that's always going to happen. But I think people got to be patient. The solution is right there. There were some of the Zed people in Discord this week talking about ways to make that happen. I think we'll see it. Will it be perfect the first time? Of course not. Do I know when it's going to happen? No, but I think you'll see that.
I agree. Yeah, I just think we're in an ecosystem to where it's kind of like a lot of people are just being pushed up to the D1 equivalent of competition, to where they don't belong there, right? And they're kind of stuck in Class 1 and can't really compete because they're going against the D1 horses when they really are like a D3 or D4 horse, right?
Yeah. Although I will differ from you a little bit there, and I know this isn't the conventional wisdom, but in the last couple weeks, I think Class 1 has gotten a lot easier. And I think horses that could not have won in C1 a month ago can win there now. I don't know if that was intentional by Zed, or this just they didn't have a different way to do the classing, or they didn't want people to down class. But those 250s in C1 right now are winnable if you have a decent horse. Yes, there's monsters sitting those too, but I almost think pushing all these horses to C1, and I'm not saying this was some grand plan by Zed, because who knows, but I think it has actually made C1 easier because there's more horses running there. They lowered the stakes. And I know, just because I only race in C1, at least at the moment, there are horses in there I've never seen before that are flaming and winning and racing a ton.
Interesting. Do you think it was because people had to class up from the free races, so they couldn't down class, so they classed up in the free races, so now they're possibly doing 250s to go back down, which will give like an average horse a chance to win that race when a lot of them are trying to go back down? Do you think that's happening right now?
Definitely. I think that's definitely part of it, but I don't think that's all of it. I think there's horses in there that they seem new, from big stables and small stables I don't recognize. And I think it's just people that have, tried to qualify for the couple tournaments and now they're in C1 and they're just racing. And, I think the people that are hardcore into Zed and into this D-classing, I think is a little bit less of the population than people might think. I think a lot of people are just racing, and if they get to Class 1, they keep going. And if they lose for a month straight, they might stop. But I don't think everyone is declassing as much as people that are declassing think others are.
I got you. It's still probably like a little niche thing. But going back to something you said earlier, you said you put one Morticia into stud for 7 days. Now, why do you? Okay, you said you do that to get the most return as well. But does that, if you don't get a cover, does that cut into your racing profits that you could have made that week?
It does. So it's a risk. Um, the way the breeding economics are set up currently is I think I keep 56% of the cover if I put them in for 7 days. And then I think that scales down to 40% if I keep them in for one day. The way racing has been so far, and maybe this Redwood 2.0 is kind of the first time, there wasn't enough opportunity cost to forego that 20%. There just was not enough money in racing. Now I think we're getting to that point where like I might think twice about it. He comes out this weekend. If he has one left, if he doesn't sell out, I'm going to try to qualify him for Fibonacci and take a few days and do that because there's money in that, and I want him to qualify. But 2 months ago, man, if I could get 0.5, 0.7, 1 for him as a stud cover, that's 3 months of racing. So I don't mind 7 days of sitting him on the bench, at least in the current construction of the game.
You said something I didn't even think about is that the tournaments. So like if you're putting your horses in for a week, you're probably going to miss out on a whole tournament, right?
Yeah. So the way they've done it so far, which I think is good and I give them credit for, is you have to qualify. But after you qualify, the horse can be in stud and they will just race him and they don't pull him out, which I think is good. You're not just totally disruptive from being able to generate stud income. So I need to get the 25 races in, which will take a few days, but then I can put him back and the tournament can proceed as it would, and they just pull him out. So I confirmed that before the last tournament with somebody at Zed, which I think is a fair way to do it because you don't have to pick one or the other.
I like that. Just get your races in and then put them in studs. So now for these horses, are you doing paid or free races to try and qualify?
It really depends. With my three main kind of racers that I race for money all the time, I'll do just paid races because I think they can qualify anyway. And the Z1, the Z1 female that did well in the pity tournament is like a third and fourth place monster, but she flames at 1600. I think just high base ability, no distance preference. And so I just raced her in cash races and she qualified easily. I'll try to run them for money because I think they can win and make money. And if they start to dip a little bit, I'll throw in a couple frees. But you know how it goes then. You win the free races and then you go back to a paid and lose that one. So with those, with my horses that are legitimately good, I'll just try to run them. I'll be careful with race selection. With other horses that I don't have as much confidence in, I'll just run them in the free races.
When you're racing, do you use Know Your Horses plugin, StackNax? What are you using to help you study your fields when you race?
I use the Know Your Horses plugin, which is awesome. Again, for the horses that I race the most, they're in C1. I don't even need the plugin because I know the horses to avoid and I can eyeball a field as sad as that might sound to some people and know, if I should go for it or not. But the plugin is awesome when you're racing a new horse or C4, C5, where I just personally don't have as many horses just from a time management perspective. And I use the KYH plugin, which does a good job of showing you sort of how a horse that's sitting at, which odds are you haven't heard of in C4, unless it's a monster, might flame at a certain distance, how many races they've done, et cetera, et cetera.
Gotcha. That's cool. So when you get a new horse, like let's say you just bred this horse, do you choose a specific Griffin and do you hold weight on flames? Like, how do you take this horse from Griffin to potentially class one, or do you take it from Griffin to open sea and sell it? Like, how do you, what's your process with a new bred horse?
So we play it by ear a little bit, I think, and it just depends how the month is going and how much, ETH we're trying to make. But um, I race 80% of what I breed. I don't race every single one. I sold some Nakamoto's on race last month. When I am doing a Griffin, I'll try to pick either long distance or a sprint. I try to avoid I avoid 16 completely. And I kind of avoid 1800 as well, although that may not be, there may not be much to that thought process. But I think what people say is 1600 does not have a distance preference associated with it. So you're not going to get as much information in a Griffin from that. If I'm doing a Griffin with a Nakamoto, it's kind of like, if I don't flame, something's gone very, that's bad.
Yeah.
And if I do flame, I'm not too excited about it, right? I do try to get into soft Griffins, but I've had a few glue Z2s and Z3s that flamed in their Griffin and were terrible, and so it's not going to tell you too much. If I have a bred Finney or Buterin that goes into the Griffin and flames, I'm normally pretty pumped on it. And I've never really sold off of a Griffin. I've definitely posted off of a Griffin before, but usually what I'll try to do is just run it out and do one sprint, do one mid, do one marathon. If I'm flaming somewhere, I'll keep at it. I only do that. I only do paid races with bred horses just because I don't think frees really tell you anything, at least the way it's working right now. And if I'm not flaming or winning after even 4, 5, 6 races, I'll just cut bait. I don't keep around a lot of horses. I'd just rather have the money to breed next month. And if I am flaming, I'll keep going and try to win money. And depending on what it is, especially if it's kind of a Z10 to 20, just for my own time management for what we're trying to do, I usually will try to sell it to somebody who wants that kind of horse, wants to grind, might want to try to qualify for a tournament. I don't have as much bandwidth as some of these other stables to just pound and pound and pound, even though you could make money. I do want to mostly have, and my partners agree, our racers in C1 that can compete at a high level, that can compete in a Netflix, that could win a tournament. That's where I want our racers to be. And so I'm not afraid to sell something that's doing well and let somebody else have it and sell it at a decent price and let them make money with it or breed with it. So we keep it lean.
Do you ever worry about letting out the bloodline of these horses through that offspring sale? And do you ever worry, like, if this horse would have been a good breeder, do you go back and check up on their offspring once you've sold them?
We do. Definitely check when we sell either a raced, something we've raced a little bit, but not quite sure how good it is, or sell it unraced. Always go back and look, as much as that may not be the healthiest thing to do. Yeah. And, we've kicked ourselves a couple times, but for what we're hoping for, which is like a really kind of top 100, top 250 ELO sort of hit, I feel comfortable letting a lot of these go at a fair price for somebody who's going to do more with it than I am. And I'll sell it at, fair or floor prices. I'm not afraid to do that. We've let one good breeder go, which was a Z2 legendary, who had a couple decent hits. But again, we're trying to keep it lean. We want money to breed, buy other stuff, buy higher level races. just based on our sort of setup and the amount of time we can and can't put into it. And I'm not afraid to let, like I said, I've never sold a Genesis. I'm not afraid to let a good legendary or exclusive go. And if that horse is an amazing racer or breeder, that's awesome. And that's great information for me. And I'll use that to my advantage, either trying to breed it the next time or trying to sell something the next time with the same bloodline. So we do have a couple Nakamoto females out of one Morticia that we're holding on to for breeding purposes, because I think they aren't winners themselves, but I think are clearly sort of the, you know, A shape, leftward A shape kind of thing, where they're clearly decent, and I think we'll probably pop off a good one here at some point. But the rest, I'm not afraid to cut bait on something good or bad, and I just can't manage having 50, 60, 70 horses, especially if they're not making money for me anytime soon.
I like that. That's cool. Cause I don't have the guts to cut bait, man. Like, especially when they breeding minimums were like 0.13 and then I get an offer for like 0.03. I'm like, nah, dog. I'll just hold on to it and I'll take my L in silence, you know?
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I'm not taking the bot offers, but I'm not afraid to sell something for less than what it cost me. I mean, that was unheard of a few months ago, but that's the reality now. And it's just a decision. And if I don't see a path to making that kind of money back in a few months of what I'm being offered, I'm not afraid to just cut it loose. I think there's enough variance in breeding where I'm not going to kick myself if a legendary or exclusive I've sold pops off a good offspring, because I've got the blood above it.
And you can possibly make it again. And plus,
Exactly.
it's going to raise the value of that horse up here, right? Because it shows that it's bred a good horse.
Exactly. So
I like that. So if I gave you the keys to Zed right now, today, you could change one thing: bring back odds, take away flames, take away queue times, whatever you want to do. What are you doing? What are you changing in Zed? One thing.
yeah, I think it'd be along the lines of what we were talking about a few minutes ago, which is creating more race formats so that more types of horses and types of stables can engage with the game and get enjoyment and profitability. And I think it could be either tournaments or it could be special classes of, Z20s and above, winless horses or less than 5% win rate horses or unprofitable horses. And I think those sorts of formats would really, really help. And because it's tough right now, and I'm totally cognizant of it, is if you don't have a monster, it can be discouraging. And then you spent all this time trying to qualify for the tournament and it didn't work out, or you lost the first race and now you feel stuck. But I think those more, and it just means more utility for more horses. But that's what I think is critically important. I don't think Dez is critically important. I think the people saying that just want to make more money back in their Genesises. And by the way, Zed hasn't even sold all the Genesises yet, so don't hold your breath. I think breeding needs some work in terms of visibility into what we're doing and feedback. It's just too much of a black box right now. But I think the more inclusive racing formats, whether it's tournaments or cash games, is the most important thing right now. And I think the thing is, if you look at the data, man, these days with these tournaments, their engagement is off the charts. Their participation is off the charts. They are getting people who normally don't play racing and breeding and buying and selling. And you don't hear about that in the Discord, but I guarantee you Zed sees that and doesn't think things are that bad right now, because so many more people are playing the game when these tournaments and free races and special formats go on. There's a couple websites where you can see the data that the amount of stables racing shoots up. when there's these tournaments that are more inclusive. Um, and I think that's the way right now. I think that's the most important thing, is give people a purpose to play the game. Because if you came in thinking, oh, I'm going to buy 3 Genesis females and a Genesis male and just, make 6 times my money on every breed for the rest of eternity, that's not going to work out for you anymore. And there needs to be a way for people to participate and have fun and have a shot at making money. Otherwise they're going to leave.
I agree 100%. People have to have a shot at making money. So I'm going to change this question up for you. So I normally ask people, if you had half an ETH, what would you get? But I'm going to ask you this. How much ETH do you need to make money in this game as an initial investment?
I don't think you even need half an ETH. I see horses for sale. I saw some this morning from guys on Twitter that are profitable for sale for 0.15 and 0.2. People are hesitant to invest in racing right now, and I get that. There's uncertainty around it. There has been the whole time Zed's existed. You don't need serious money to be profitable. I would recommend get 0.2 or 0.25. Buy a racer that is racing recently and winning and flaming in paid races that's profitable. You will make money if you pay attention to what the person has done and are careful with who you're entering against. And I wouldn't buy a Genesis and hodl it if that was your only money. I wouldn't, try to buy the floor of a Z10 or whatever. There's plenty of stuff out there right now. I've never seen racer prices this cheap, where if you're willing to pony up a bit, 0.1, 0.2, I know 5 for sale right now, where you can make money.
How would you look for these horses? Are you going on Haku, and what statistics are you entering in to find these race horses for 0.15, 0.1?
Yeah, so I use KYH and Haku, and I think the best way to start is on the KYH listing feature, is just put in a max price you want, and sort by profitability, and make sure you're getting a horse that has won money. It's crazy in the early days for me, at least, you'd see horses being sold off of odds or off of a win rate, and they literally did not make money. You can now sort using either of those tools and get a horse that has won money in its life. So I start with KYH, put a couple filters in, see what's out there at a price range I'm looking at, and make sure a horse has made money. Make sure it's running paid races, and that's where I would start. Make sure it's been running recently. Make sure not all the money's from like one of the tournaments or something like that. Make sure it's got a decent sample size. Think about what's the profit been, how many times has it been raced. That gives you a sense of profit per race. How much could you make a week, a month, and how does that compare to its price point? You can get stuff now. You could make your money back in a month, 2 months, and still have the horse. So that's what I would recommend. Don't try to look at flames too much. Don't try to just look at win rate by itself. Make sure to exclude free races. There's plenty of stuff out there right now.
That's awesome. Instead of more of like the lotto ticket strategy, come in, do your research, buy a racehorse, you know what you're getting, and then so you have a chance at making X amount of money along the way.
Yep.
Last 2 questions for you. If you could pick one horse on the platform, you had an unlimited budget, you could pick one horse to own, who would you pick and why?
One Morticia, man.
I like it. Let's go.
I mean, he's an awesome sprinter. He qualifies for the tournaments. He gets a lot of demand in the stud. So I love that horse. He's awesome. There's some sweet ones out there, but he's the one I would take.
I love that. You always got to pick the own horse, right? Like some people have turned that back on me, and I'm like, it's hard not to say your own horse, right?
For sure.
And then last question. If I was a DAO and I came up to you and I said, hey, I want to buy your whole stable, how much would you sell it to me for in Ethereum?
Tough to say. I'm not, and I'm not a seller right now. But obviously there's a number that we would sell at. I think we're making a good amount of money without selling anything or selling anything core, um, monthly and quarterly, and in at least half a year here have made a good chunk of change. So, normally, with growth and stability in the platform, which I think we're heading towards, um, someone would need to pay me, 3 or 4 times what I make in a year, what we make in a year from this stable, for that to be worth it. So, I'm not going to throw a number out there.
It's all good.
I think Breathless Edge, if they had waited till next year, and I get what those guys did. Those guys are awesome, and that is so sweet. They got that sale, and that's an awesome horse. But I think you're going to see some big numbers coming out, especially Z1 males that can win those races. Again, you win one of those races, that's a good year right there, right? Let alone the stud covers. And I think as the game grows, the stud fees are going to go up for good horses, especially Genesis, which I think is mostly who's being bred with anyway. That income, I understand, has been closed off for a lot of people recently, but I think for the good horses, it hasn't been. So that's how I think about it. But we're not looking to exit. We believe in the platform. I think it's great. I think they've accomplished a lot. There's a couple of things I thought would be done by now that aren't, but there's some stuff that has been awesome, like the tournaments and the big races. And it would take a lot. It would take multiples of what I make in a year, though.
All
That's
right,
for sure.
I'll change it up for you. What do you think is the next? Okay, so next year, what's the next highest sale above Breathless Edge, and what horse do you think it's going to be?
Hard to guess which horse. I think it will be a male Z1, because I think those all in all are the best racers. And when you include the stud income, which is still pretty good right now, even though the market is crappy, that's pretty compelling. And again, compared to any other NFT, it blows it out of the water. I think you're going to see a 150, 200 ETH sale for sure in the next 6 months. I'm not going to guess which horse, because I don't know who's in the market and who's not. But man, if you look at that KYH ELO chart, though, there are some crazy horses out there. People don't realize a lot of these guys don't race them that much. And then they show up for these tournaments and just crush. But there's 4 or 5 out there that I think are worth a lot of money, who, if they decided to stud them, could make a lot. If they, as these tournaments and big prize pools start coming out more and more, I think you're going to see some big numbers come out. And it's not even just directly tied to racing. I think it's breeding as well. We've already seen a Z2 legendary market of 1 to 2 ETH. It's down from that now, way down, but that gets back, that flows right into the stud income that these Z1s get. So there's 3 or 4 incredible Z1s out there, that we admire and think are sweet, would love to own. I assume the guys aren't selling, just knowing a little bit about who they are and their situations and stuff. But I think you'll see some big sales for sure. I think the way we're headed is probably a cold next couple months here. Zed's not trying to grow, right? They're trying to shore up the game, shore up the platform. I think there'll be a drop in Q1. Hopefully that's Q1 2022. And I think that'll get some hype around it. I think the website will be better. I think the racing environment will be more robust. I think that's when you'll see your next kind of big step here.
I agree as well, because if we look back to Breathless Edge, I think Breathless Edge was bought either right before or at the announcement of the tournament. So if they come out and say, "Hey, we got $1 million race," I mean, anybody that has a chance to win that race, those horses are going to start selling for maybe like $250,000 or something like that. So it'll be interesting. But Jack, thank you so much for your time, man. Do you have any questions for me?
No, I mean, are you going to enter the next Redwood Classic if it pops up?
If I can get the $3,000 or if I can get someone to buy some action, I'll be back in that one. And that's what I like about a U-shaped horse. I mean, I know it's a 50-50 shot to where I'm either going to win or lose this, but I know that this one horse can go whatever spectrum, whatever distance, and it's really just a coin flip, right?
Totally, dude. You enter that all day long. It's funny, Diamonds was not on my radar that much, and I'm not as in the streets as some of these other guys that just know all about every horse. That's an awesome horse. I would definitely take some action on the next big race if you're in the market for it, for sure.
Hell yeah, man. If I don't got the funds, I'll definitely be hitting you up, or we might be in the same race, so I don't know. We might not get the funds from you that time.
You can still do that, though.
All right.
A little bit of a hedge.
I like that, on the upside and the downside. So where can people contact Jack? Where can people contact you at?
Yeah, I'm on at Sunny Days Stable on Twitter. Always on that, always responsive to that. And then I'm on Discord too, in Zed General, and I'm in the Cintrabos Discord. I'm in the KYH Discord. Couple others. So hit me up on Twitter is probably the easiest way. And always down to chat, always down to talk Zed.
Hell yeah, man. I'll definitely be seeing you on the track. And if you ever want to come back up sometime, if you win another big Netflix race, I'll have you back up and we can talk again.
That's a deal right there.
All
right, man. Hey, thanks so much. Awesome stuff this week. Loved all the interviews, and thanks for having me.
Yep, no problem, man. Thank you for your time.
All right, man.
Have a good one.